Well, that shit sucked. Welcome to what should have been a special edition of the Knicks Film School postgame show on a Martin Luther King Jr. Day. For those who don't know me, I'm XJ. I'm here with my guy, Mensa Smith, a.k.a. Mensa the GOAT, as I call him. We are here ready to break down what was a competitive and concerning game versus the Orlando Magic. Mensa, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how you would describe it. But I just want to say, yeah, it's fitting that you and I are doing this post game since, you've closely been observing the Magic situation. I live in Jacksonville, a couple hours north of Orlando. And, there was a glaring hole in the Knicks roster in this game that was pretty well exposed with Jalen Brunson being out. And you and I might be the two guys that are able to talk to that a little bit, maybe the best of anyone out there. So, yeah, let's dive right in. I mean, Mensa, what was your instant reaction to the game?
Instant reaction to the game. This team is incomplete, even though you're seeing some of the good in terms of the Deuce McBride minutes that we're getting. We're seeing some really good minutes from Isaiah Hartenstein. Dante DiVincenzo continues to be great. And despite their efforts, maybe Hartenstein not so much today because of the foul trouble, but despite their efforts, there just isn't the floor-raising talent when a guy like Jalen Brunson doesn't play. And newsflash to anybody, Jalen Brunson is not going to play 80, 81 games this season. So we have a problem, Houston. We need for this team, and give credit to the Orlando Magic. They fought back. They fought really hard. They played really well. And they were down Franz Wagner. So they're down Franz. We're down Jalen. It was kind of an even match in terms of, we're also down Mitchell Robinson, but he's been down for a while. It's not that we should be relying that's not an excuse anymore at this point. So, and the Knicks have learned to live life without Mitchell Robinson. So for the New York Knicks today to come out and play a good game in that third quarter, I think after we got off to Julius got off to a rocky start and kind of remained rocky, but in the instances of where we're playing a team that we should be evenly matched with, we did not have the rising tide today in Jalen Brunson. And what it comes down to is, if you want to be known as a star in this league, if you want to be a guy that your team can rely upon when the other guy, Jalen Brunson, is out, Julius Randle cannot afford games like this. And this is the second one in a row for him now where he just has not been what we needed from him. And this one he actually turned in was worse than the game against Memphis, to be expected because Memphis was a G League team, basically, and the Orlando Magic are a playoff team. So we should have expected Julius to play worse today if we were comparing the two, but not by his standard. This was a game for Julius Randle to come out and really just be dominant, and we didn't get that from him. Instead, we got good performances from DiVincenzo. We got a good performance from OG Anunoby. We got good performance from Isaiah Hartenstein while he was in the game. And Julius Randle just kind of let us down today. And that is concerning today. It is concerning tomorrow. It is concerning next month. It is concerning in the playoffs. It is concerning going forward if this is who Julius Randle is going to be without another quote-unquote guy. So that's kind of how I feel about the game today. Josh Hart was not good, and he's at a place where I'm concerned at this point because he's just not okay. The reason why I'm concerned with Josh Hart is because if you're going to be our primary backup shooting guard, the starting shooting guard is one of the best catch and shoot players in the entire NBA right now. So if you're coming in for him and you can't shoot the way he shoots, everything else that you do and everything else that you give to the team has to be on that level that makes up for the lack of elite shooting. And he hasn't been there. The rebounding is good. Okay, no problem. The defense not really been where it was last season. The scoring, he's not a scorer at all, but he's been worse this year than he was last year. It's just, he's been really, really bad. I watched one possession when he took like a turnaround mid-range jumper, missed everything, and then he came down.
He had a few of those kind of possessions where it's just like, whoa, what was that, dude?
He had a possession where he comes down and Julius kicks the ball out to him. He passes up the three because Josh Hart passes up threes, and then instead of laying the ball up, it would look like a rock fight, like he threw a rock at the basket. He's just not in a place where he needs to be for this team to be relying on him the way they're relying on him, because when we look down at the end of the season, he's probably going to have played more minutes than Quentin Grimes and Dante DiVincenzo, and they've been playing better basketball than him. I do want to we'll talk I guess about other players later down. I'll let you get in here, but I mean it's just been this team today was let down by two guys. I think we were let down by Julius Randle and Josh Hart for the most part. But I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, no, there was a lot there, and I think you covered a ton of things that we're gonna kind of go in more detail about. I think overall, kind of my overarching view was like the Knicks and the Magic look very similar. When we see Paolo Banchero kind of as the offensive focal point that the Magic run everyone through when Franz is not there. We see Julius Randle on the other end as the offensive focal point that the Knicks run everything through when Jalen Brunson is not there. And essentially an assortment of good to great defenders around them and guys who can shoot threes, guys who can kind of excel in their role depending on the night. But the Knicks were at home, and I think the Knicks secondary players on average are probably better than the Magic players. And so I just feel like this was a game I expected the Knicks to win. They were favorited by, I think, 5 points. I probably would have put it at 7.5. Like, I think the Knicks should have been a much better team given that they were at home. And I just feel like they just didn't play that way. And I felt like it throughout the whole game, even when the Magic were down by, 10, the Knicks were up by like 10 or 12, whatever it was that the lead got to. It didn't feel like the Knicks were really playing a much better style of basketball than the Magic. It felt like the Magic were missing open threes. And, a guy that you have a lot of affinity for, Jalen Suggs, he missed a ton of open threes. And I feel like if he hits a couple of those, the game doesn't even feel as close as it was. You mentioned Julius Randle. I agree with you. I think Julius Randle didn't play up to par for sure. I think one of those reasons is that we're seeing some of the lack of shooting or the shooting struggles kind of catch up to him. He wasn't getting switches early on in the game because they just didn't respect his shot and they were just going under screens. And it was like, okay, you're going to have Paolo Banchero guarding you, which is not a matchup that's like easy for Randle to expose, not one of his more easy matchups in the league. And then we're going to see Jonathan Isaac guarding him, which I would say is like, I don't know. I think Jonathan Isaac wins that matchup. Like, Isaac might be the best wasted talent in the league, honestly. Like, and we can talk about him later on. But either way, you got Paolo and Isaac guarding Randle, and that's not a good matchup for the Knicks that you want to really funnel things through. You're going to want switches, and he wasn't getting switches because his three's not dropping and hasn't been dropping all season. He hit a couple, and then we started to see some of the switches. Then he had Bataze on him. Then he had Joe Ingles on him a couple times. Then he had Fultz switched onto him. And then he was really able to create an advantage, draw help, make good plays. But without those switches, this is not a good matchup for Julius Randle in terms of the fours that they have defensively. Missed 2 killer free throws at the end, which hurts so badly, but given that he's been shooting so well from the free throw line this season. And, at least needed one of those, but missing 2 really put the Knicks behind the 8 ball. And yeah, I think overall it was not a good game for Randle, obviously, as anyone would say. But I also think there's reasons for it that have to do with the Orlando Magic having good matchups for Randle and his shot not falling consistently enough that teams are really respecting his 3-point shot. So to me, those were the 2 reasons why Randle struggled, and we're going to need to see that consistency when Jalen Brunson is not playing. I don't know if you want to touch on
I think that's really well said.
Of it all.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was really well said. Again, just jumping in about Julius Randle, I understand Paolo Banchero. I understand Mosley in that Magic defense. They're really good. Bataze, I'm not sure if he still is, but at one point he was. I think he was like top 10 in defensive EPM. So and then you have Jalen Suggs, who was leading the league in defensive EPM at one point. So this is a team that knows how to defend for sure. But I don't want to hear that today because you are Julius Randle. You are the guy who's supposed to lead this team. You are the guy that this team decided that they were going to hitch their wagon to by sending out a guy like RJ Barrett, who was struggling, and the trade was not wrong. I'm not trying to say that, but everybody knew that RJ and Randle could not coexist. So they went with the better player over the younger player. Now that guy's gone. Now you don't have, and they sent out 2 shot creators in order to bring in a guy that makes you better at basketball. You need to be better at basketball. It's not okay that you struggle in Memphis, right? And I have to touch on this. And instead of going back to New York with your team, you fly to Dallas and you make a public appearance at the Cowboys game last night, and then you come out and you play like this. Like, listen, I'm not saying you can't have a life. I'm not saying that everybody's not allowed to be human. But if you're gonna make public appearances and then come out and shoot tour dates, I think I'm not sure if you noticed, but Julius Randle apparently has a tour a viewing on May 18th because he shot 5 for 18 tonight. It's just not what you want. It's terrible. I'm not happy with the way he's playing right now. And these were the 2 games here that meant the most for the New York Knicks in terms of what Julius Randle was supposed to do, because we were down Jalen Brunson. If Brunson is not playing, then it's not on OG Anunoby to step up. It's not on Dante DiVincenzo to step up. It's not on Isaiah Hartenstein to step up. It's on Julius Randle to step up. He's the one who's supposed to soak up that usage, and not even just soak up the usage, but be good with the usage that you are getting. Right? We're running the offense through you. You need to know that, okay, these guys are going to double me. These guys are going to play me harder because Jalen Brunson's not on the court. I need to come with my A game. And I feel like the past 2 games for Julius Randle, he hasn't given us that. And that is concerning, because at a certain point, like as some, like, in the workplace, right? If I know 1 or 2 of my colleagues are calling out, it doesn't matter if I'm sick, right? Because I'm the leader. I need to step up. Same thing with Julius Randle here, right? Like, that Jalen Brunson's on PTO, right? Things are going to be a little more difficult for you. You have to step up and you have to bring your A game no matter what. And that is some of the unreasonable standards that come with being a star player in this league, but everybody is held to that standard, right? Like, Tyrese Maxey hasn't been playing as well without Embiid, and everybody's like, "Oh well, look, he's not that great, is he?" And I understand that's unreasonable because Maxey is a good basketball player, and I'm not even at the point where I'm saying Randle is a bad basketball player. I still believe he's a good basketball player, but these trends are concerning because it feels like unless Julius Randle is insulated with the perfect pieces around him, we get Randle performances like this, and that is a concern. Again, today it's a concern down the line. It's a concern in the playoffs. It's a concern for the team's team building strategy. When you have a guy like Julius Randle, who is supposed to be your number 2, and then when number 1 is out, and that's the important thing about the president and the vice president, right? If the president can't lead, the vice president has to lead. So if Julius Randle is going to be in that vice presidential role, then when Jalen Brunson ain't there, we need Julius to step up. Look, these are the first 2 games that Jalen Brunson has missed. If Jalen Brunson misses extended time, then we will continue to grade Julius Randle in that alpha role, but he's failing right now, and that is concerning for the New York Knicks.
Yeah, I think that's all well said, and this is the elephant in the room. It's the elephant in our lap at this point. Like, it's unavoidable. We made a trade and lost 2 of our better secondary, tertiary creators, and this is what the team is going to look like. And as soon as the trade happened, it's Jalen Brunson is now the most important player on your roster by far. I mean, he probably was always the most important player on the roster, but it was debatable because you have Emmanuel quickly to jump up and step up and fill that role and do a pretty good approximation of the impact overall that Jalen Brunson can bring. But you trade Emmanuel quickly, you trade RJ Barrett, and now Jalen Brunson, you can't go anywhere without Jalen Brunson. Like that is for sure as soon as the trade happens. And the trade, I believe, for sure makes the Knicks overall better in the long run at max strength, at full strength. The Knicks are a better team, I believe, today than they were before the trade happened. However, on nights like this, when Jalen Brunson's out, this is the kind of thing that you can expect. And the guys that you have kind of backfilling for Quickly and even RJ, we have DiVincenzo and McBride. Guess what? They both played really well. And because they don't play exactly the same kind of role, it doesn't really affect the outcome. DiVincenzo was great. And I want to say, I felt like he was probably even better than Deuce. Like, if I had to kind of say who was the best player in the Knicks today, I would say it was DiVincenzo. Like, it felt like the Knicks were running out and trying out a bunch of initiators. OG had his time kind of running pick and rolls and initiating the offense. McBride did. Even Hart did for a few possessions, was kind of like running the offense. But DiVincenzo looked the best for sure. And the offense looked the best with him initiating, whether that was running pick and rolls or, playing a 2-man game with a forward or playing a 2-man game with a guard on the empty side. Like, DiVincenzo was kind of doing it all. He was finishing at the rim, which historically he's been a bad finisher. He was showing a lot in terms of his ability to get into the paint and finish. His passing was pretty crisp. He would have a couple of crazy plays here and there, but that's what you expect from Dante DiVincenzo. OG, I felt like they tried him out as a creator, and he did okay. I mean, they ran several pick and rolls through him, but it went okay. But they seemed like it was successful, but it didn't look good. Like, it looked weird and kind of clunky. Like, I don't really see OG as being like the guy to step up. And it's like, okay, Brunson's out or Randle's out, OG's going to be the guy to step up and rerun offense through. Like, I'm not really seeing it. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. And then Deuce McBride, played exceptionally well, hitting shots. It was a solid initiation game from him, especially playing against starters. I think he took a step up, but his comp is really Jalen Suggs, the guy that we saw on the other end of the court. He's really like a small 3-and-D wing who can initiate at times. His shooting has been absurd, and we've known that he's a good shooter from his time in the G League. But, in evaluating him, I'm trying to look past the shooting because he's not going to shoot 50% plus from three for a season. But could he shoot 39%? Like, I think so. The fact of the matter is, though, that he's not going to really initiate offense for you and be your primary creator where he can get it to the paint, create an advantage, and kickouts to guys who are open or who can attack closeouts. Like, that's not going to be his role. He's again, like a small 3-and-D wing, and we have these guys who can fill roles and do a really good job, but not the role that we need them to fill, which is the thing that Emmanuel Quickly was doing, and to a lesser extent RJ Barrett was doing. So I don't know, what do you think about those two guys' performances specifically before we jump into super chats?
So I think Deuce and Dante were excellent. I think they were great. Dante didn't shoot it as well as we are accustomed to him shooting the ball. Deuce, even though he's shooting 50% for the season right now, he shot 4 for 10 from 3. So I guess if you just said we should expect him to shoot 39, so it's not too far off from 39. I think they were great, and their performances were very encouraging. Even OG Anunoby, he didn't take a lot of shots, took 11 shots, made 5 of them. That's encouraging stuff, because it's to a point where our role players are playing in their role. They're playing well, no matter if Jalen Brunson is there or not, right? So I think they were great. I think, again, I think you're right. I think DiVincenzo did a really good job initiating the ball, and you're seeing why out of him, Hart and Brunson, why DiVincenzo got drafted the highest. DiVincenzo was a top 20 pick, and those other two guys, I know Brunson was 31st, and I want to say Hart was like 27th in 2017. But you see that talent that he has for just initiating. Out of the three, I think he may be the most athletic. He's really good. I'm really happy with the way he's playing again. Miles McBride, Deuce McBride, Tress McBride tonight. I think he's just going to be Tress McBride for the next until that shooting progresses. He's playing really well. He has officially moved ahead of Quentin Grimes in the pecking order, which is discouraging, for one, because Grimes was drafted ahead of him. But also, I mean, Grimes isn't playing terribly, so it's more encouraging than it is discouraging. I made a joke on Twitter that it seems like Miles McBride, Deuce, signed one of those contracts that the Braves get all their young players to sign, and then
hilarious.
Then they just blow up. So I'm happy that we have him for the next three years, and he looks like a guy who's a really good bet to outplay the current contract that he's on, 3 years and $13 million extension. Really good basketball players, and the role players are not the reason we lost this game. We kept the Orlando Magic under 100 points. So the defense isn't the reason we lost this game too much. Precious was terrible. That's a problem.
That's a big problem. Having Precious. Yeah, you go ahead on Precious. It was no bueno.
Yeah. I don't really want to say much beyond he was terrible, because it's to a point where I don't like to just dump on players for no reason. We know who Precious is at this point. Sean with the W always says that, look, this guy this is his third team on his rookie contract. He is who he is. I can't be encouraged or discouraged by Precious at this point. It's just like, can we get Jericho back in the lineup? Do we need to make another trade for a big man? But I don't think that the role players are the reason we lost this game outside of Precious, because Precious, well, it's terrible. And when you lose a game by 4 points, the margins do matter because you lost this game by 1 or 2 possessions thereabout.
Yeah, I agree, and I am right before we segue to the super chats. I did want to say a couple words on Precious, and not to dump on him, but I think Precious and Flynn's minutes were really poor minutes for the team as a whole. I think Precious, his defense has been worse than I expected coming in because it's seeing him in spot minutes here and there in Miami and in Toronto. It's like he seems like a really decent defensive player, but some plays it's like, oh, that's awesome. Like he can switch. He can hold his own on a guard or on a smaller wing, and he'll grab an offensive rebound here and there, and like cool, like he can do a couple things. And honestly, I like the rotation where they have Julius Randle, Precious Achiuwa, and OG Anunoby, because all three of those guys can pretty much switch anything that doesn't include a guard in it. And I think that that's really cool. And I love that for the team. I love that look for the team. But other plays, it's just like, what is he doing? Like, why is he so far out of position? Like, it's just very confusing defensively. And then offensively, like he really just doesn't offer you much. He had one moment where he was just kind of stuck at the end of the shot clock and dribbled into a bump, floater that he made, and was like, whoa, what is that? But besides those plays here and there, it's just like, yeah, I don't really trust him at all in his minutes. And Flynn, Malachi Flynn, obviously missed all of his attempts from the field tonight. And I just feel like when he's out there, I just wish that Deuce was out there. Like, I mean, obviously Deuce McBride played 36 minutes. He's not going to play 48 minutes. He's going to sit some of the game, but it's just like he doesn't offer. Malachi really hasn't seemed like he offers anything that Deuce doesn't offer. So I just don't see any advantage there. And to be honest, like, I know we're at a 9-man rotation. When Brunson's out, it's almost to me like, do we have to play Flynn at all? Like, can Quentin Grimes just absorb those minutes and DiVincenzo play more and run more of the offense through him? I mean, I never really was a believer in DiVincenzo being a solid enough initiator, but he showed me something tonight, and it makes me feel like Malachi is kind of redundant and not needed in terms of his skill set that he brings. So those are kind of my assessments from the two other Raptors that came in that deal. But unless you have any final words on, kind of our instant reactions to the game, any players you want to highlight, we can go ahead and segue into super chats. I don't know if you have anything else you want to go over, Mensa.
I think we said everything that's necessary. My last thought is that, yeah, with Malachi Flynn, it's to the point where it's like maybe you just start DiVincenzo and Hart when Brunson can't play, and you just run. I mean, I don't know if Tibs is this kind of coach, but I think there's enough like passing juice from all 5 of your guys if you're running DiVincenzo, Hart, Anunoby, Randle, and Hartenstein, that you can get away with just not playing Malachi Flynn ever. If Deuce has to play 40 minutes, good thing he has young legs, because it's just, yeah, the Malachi Flynn stuff is not what you want. So we will be perpetually living in what this team needs to add until they add something, maybe at the trade deadline, maybe at the in the summertime. But right now, my assessment is more than it feels like, because even with all this going on, we still lost by 4 points with Julius Randle shooting 5 for 18. So if he shoots better, maybe we're having a different conversation tonight. If he plays better, we're having a different conversation tonight. So with all the minutia going on around Julius, it's beginning to feel more like we need a third ball handler, not just because Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle are taking on too much of the role, but when Jalen Brunson isn't available, can we rely on Julius to carry us in the way that you would rely on your nominal second star? Like when Steph and KD, one of them missed, you had the other one, right? And that's a very extreme example. Let's go to let's say even with like Embiid and Harden, right? Harden wasn't too great last year, but when one guy was out, you still had another guy that wasn't necessarily at the level of Embiid. You can't be at the level of the MVP, but Harden, plays well. So we need Julius Randle to be 80 90% of what he is when Brunson is on the court. And if we can't get that, we're going to be worried about 12 Malachi Flynn minutes, and that's, look, 12 minutes is 12 minutes, but when Julius is playing 38 and giving you what he gave you tonight, that's very hard to overcome, because you can just not play Malachi. You can figure out a way to get around that because it's only 12 minutes. But when Julius is playing the way he's playing, it's very discouraging. And I think that, I forget what they say. Oh yeah, a fish rots from the head down, and when Julius is the head of the fish, it gets really fishy smelling. So that's so I guess that's my last thought on the game. We can get to the super chats.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great thought and a great encapsulation of what we just saw. Unfortunately, it was a very fishy smelling game for a large part of it. So let's go ahead and jump into super chats. We got APJP on the ones and twos who can hook us up with a couple of the super chats to start out. I will start with this one. We got one from Busy. What up, Busy? Start Deuce, bench Brunson, cut Flynn. Hashtag I said what I said. Yeah, a little bit of irony in there, obviously, but yeah, I mean, it kind of echoes a little bit of what we were saying, just kind of finishing on with Malachi's minutes not being so good. Deuce being really tremendous tonight. And obviously, Brunson, the offense is not going to run without Brunson, over a 48-minute game. But yeah, a great comment. Anything you want to say about this one, Mensa?
Obviously, Busy is joking about the bench Brunson stuff because we know how important he is. But I do want to say there is something to be said about when DiVincenzo is the fourth best defender and not the third best defender, how much better the defense looks. If we look really good with McBride out there, it's just that's not a justification to not play Jalen Brunson. But I tweeted that actually, that I would like to see what this team looks like with DiVincenzo as the fourth best defender instead of the third best. And we kind of saw that tonight with DiVincenzo having a great game, even though he didn't shoot as well as he's supposed to shoot.
Yeah, for sure. Didn't shoot as well as he has recently, but I think really a great impact overall, offensive and defensive impact game, as you said. What do we got next?
All right, I'll take this one. Guy Huber, then. Thank you for the contribution. If you trade RJ to free up the starting unit and confirm Randle is your guy going forward, these non-Brunson games leave a certain taste in your mouth. Yes, a very, very fishy taste. I think that's what we're going with. It wasn't great, man. Yeah, Julius has to be better, because when he is the guy and we're looking to him, he can't come out and go 1 for 8 in the first quarter. It's just not acceptable. And again, like with RJ gone, because for a lot of the time when RJ was here, he was the excuse, and rightfully so, because like GMAC pointed out with the stat, he was the worst high usage player since Kobe Bryant in his final season. So he was taking a lot of shots and he was missing a lot of shots. Was not very efficient. You could always point to RJ's inefficiencies, but now that's OG Anunoby, and OG Anunoby just gave you 17 on 11 shots. So the excuses have run out. And with the way we confirmed and cling to, now that we're leaning more on Julius Randle, these games are not what you want to see from him.
Yeah, I think it's to me, and you're totally right, man. So to me, the biggest thing is the 2 of 9 from 3. And some of the thoughts with the new starting lineup, has been, since the OG trade, has been like, oh, does the shooting actually matter for Randle? Like, can Randle just shoot 30% or below for the season? And it's actually fine, because now we have OG who's shooting like nearly 40%. We have DiVincenzo in the starting lineup who's shooting an absurd 45% or whatever he's shooting from 3. And then Hartenstein dishing. We have Brunson, who is one of the best shooters in the entire league. Does it matter if Randle can shoot or not? And when Brunson's in there, maybe it doesn't, because when Randle plays with the second unit, he's pretty much surrounded by 3-and-D guys. And when he plays with the starting unit, we got enough shooting to survive with the addition of OG Anunoby. However, if Brunson is not there, the shooting is going to be exposed from Julius Randle. And they are not going to go over screens. They're going to go under screens, and you are not going to get switches very easily. And Randle's going to have to cook a really good defender. And, I don't trust his ability to do that consistently. I think it depends on who the defender is, for sure. And it depends on the team. This Orlando Magic happens to be a bad matchup for Julius Randle, I believe, in terms of who those defenders are. And I don't know, it's a little bumming me out that I think Paolo Banchero, his biggest comp is Julius Randle to me, and he's like 21 years old and is able to guard Julius Randle pretty well. That kind of makes me sad, but yeah, I just think the shooting is going to matter. The shooting is going to matter if Brunson's not out there, and that's going to be the difference when you're playing a team that has stout defenders like the Orlando Magic. I think against another team you can get by, but not against this defense and this team. So for sure, it definitely leaves a fishy taste in your mouth, when you have Randle as your guy and then he performs like this.
Yep, totally agree. Thanks to Huber then.
Appreciate it, man. Danny Gardner, thank you so much for the contribution. Appreciate it, Danny. I love Josh Hart as a piece. Tibbs' over-reliance on him has been glaring of late. His focus has been sorely lacking. I agree. I love Josh Hart as a piece. I think I love everything that he brings to the table. I sort of agree, has been over relied on in the past, but I think Tibbs is probably letting him work through it. But it's been a while, and it's been a lot of up and down from Josh Hart. I know the original book out was, the extra work over the summer, playing in FIBA and all that stuff. He was exhausted, the newborns and all these kinds of things. But at this point, we're deep into the season. Things have to turn around, and the up and down performances from Josh Hart are kind of just becoming the norm and the expectation. There were some good minutes from Josh Hart. Like, honestly, there were some good minutes where I'm like, oh, he can get all the way to the rim. Look at that. Oh, he's able to kind of make something happen when nothing else is going on and kind of bully his way to the rim. And there were just way too many out of control plays where he's just like throwing up a ridiculous shot, doing a double spin and fading away and shooting an air ball with the clock running down. Like, it's just, and we see that too frequently. And so maybe that's some of your point, Danny, with his focus being lacking. And I think we see some shortcomings defensively too. So yeah, I think we could see a lot better at Josh Hart. It doesn't have to be the Hart of last year where he's shooting, an unsustainable rate from three. To me, that Josh Hart is not the real Josh Hart. I would not expect him to do that for the rest of his career. But we're seeing kind of like the Portland Josh Hart, the Josh Hart that Portland was like, yeah, we're down to get rid of this guy because we're not going to re-sign him and we want to get something back for him. And he wasn't playing super well or super consistently. And we're kind of seeing that here in New York. And so I'm ready for Josh Hart to kind of get back to being the consistent energy guy where he's getting rebounds, he's attacking the rim, he's shooting it when he's open, and just being consistent with that decision making. So I think it's a great comment.
Yeah, I think it's a very solid comment, and I just want to add another piece to it. Last year, Josh Hart was we're looking at Josh Hart as a perimeter basketball player, right? And we are in the year of our Lord, 2024, and in this year, you cannot be a perimeter basketball player and not be a good shooter. It's very difficult to do it. Last year, Josh Hart was able to get by. I think a lot of that had to do with Julius Randle's career high 3-point attempts at, I think, 34% for the season. Last year, Julius Randle, I think he shot like an insane, I want to say 200, but I don't think it's 200, but I feel like he shot 200 more threes than Jalen Brunson did last year, which was very alarming for me at the time. But now that Julius isn't shooting as many threes because, one, he's just not converting them at the same rate, and two, he's just decided not to. Now, when you have two guys like that with Julius and Josh who are turning down threes, you're starting to see it like they're both kind of like magnifying each other's flaws there. So it's to a point where the Josh Hart that we added to this team was to a team that we had a Julius Randle that was shooting a ton of threes. So one of them has to figure it out. They can't both be struggling from three with the reliance that we have on them. As Danny Gardner is saying here, like, we're over reliant on these two players. Maybe that's because of roster construction. Maybe that's because of preference, but they do get a lot of minutes. So if they're going to get a lot of minutes, they both can't be shooting like sub 30 from three. Like, they have to be converting, and it's not what you want. I think Josh Hart, I think you said Julius was 2 for 9, and I think Josh Hart was 0 for 2. So 2 for 11 from three from those two guys is not, and especially in a game when you lose by 4 points, if you're 4 from 11, this is a win, So it's not what you want. And I think that this is going to be an issue for as long as those two are teammates, the same way it was an issue with RJ and Julius. One of them has to shoot well. If both of them are not shooting well, and they cannot coexist. Thanks, Danny.
Yeah, great point. Not going to cut it. Appreciate it, Danny. What else do we got?
All right, Mythic Monty. Oh, thanks for the contribution. Once again, begging Leon for another initiator. 100%. This team is not complete. We need another guy, whether that's Malcolm Brogdon or DeJounte Murray or Terry Rozier or Tyus Jones or whoever your favorite initiator du jour is. We need that guy because the Knicks are currently struggling with developing and scoring offense. And it's not what you want, especially on a night when your main initiator is down.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the Knicks need another initiator moving forward. I mean, if we get into the playoffs and God forbid Jalen Brunson gets injured, gets banged up, it's all over. And that's true for any team with their best player. But at the same time, I'm saying, like, if he misses time, like, not even if he misses a game, if he misses time within a game, if he misses a game as opposed to like being out for the season, for the postseason or something like that, it's all over. Like, the Knicks can't survive, I think, in a playoff environment for sure without another creator, another initiator. I was just looking up really quickly. Malcolm Brogdon averages about 11 drives per game and shoots nearly 50% of those drives. His pass percentage is 43% out of those drives. Turnover percentage very low, 4.6% out of those drives. So to me, Malcolm Brogdon would plug a lot of holes in the second unit, and in terms of backing up Jalen Brunson if he had to miss games or miss time. I think if you are kind of like us, and I know me and you, Mensa, are thinking that the Knicks have an outside chance, and maybe not even an outside chance, a solid chance at making the Eastern Conference Finals. You are going to need a secondary creator who can come in there and play behind Jalen Brunson or in lieu of Jalen Brunson. It is not sufficient what they have with just Julius Randle and the rest of the guys, despite some of the really great stuff that we've seen from DiVincenzo and Miles McBride, like we talked about. And real quick, the fact that we're seeing this level of McBride, it's like the best possible version of McBride that you could possibly expect. This is how he played in the G League. And they're still losing games like this when Brunson's not out there. That's a bad sign, because you can't get any more from him. You really can't. So, yeah, begging Leon is right if you want anything to do with making progress in the playoffs this year. So, appreciate it, Mythic Monty.
Yeah, really quick, I just wanted to fact check myself. I was wrong. Julius Randle did not shoot 300 more threes than Jalen Brunson last season. In fact, he shot 314 more threes than Jalen Brunson last season. He shot 636 threes last year. And Jalen Brunson shot 322. Jalen Brunson was actually fifth on the team in 3-point attempts last year. Can you imagine a year? Wow, what a wild time. And this year, Jalen Brunson leads the team with 250 attempts through 38 games. Julius Randle through 39 games has attempted 201. So yeah, we need either more threes or more accurate threes from Julius Randle, probably both, because that was the formula that we added Josh Hart to.
Yeah. Thanks, and Jalen Brunson did miss 14 games. Julius Randle only missed 5, but still the disparity is more than you would expect to see over the course of a 9-game differential between those two guys. So yeah, it's a great point. What do we got?
Right.
Is this you?
I think this is me. Okay. Wait, no, I read Mythic Montes. This is you. Yeah.
Okay, Deadward 604. Appreciate the contribution, my man. Thank you so much. Really means a lot. We appreciate it. Something needs to be done about these long scoreless droughts. And I still don't get how a Tibs coach team can't hit free throws and rebound when they need to. Also can't close a game without JB. A lot of great points in here. We kind of talked about the scoring droughts and the issues there with creation. The hitting free throws and rebounding this is a good point. This is the second game where we're like, can we get some rebounds here at the end? And that is not what you want to see. And the Knicks have some pretty good rebounders kind of on the court at all times. We have good long rebounders in Josh Hart and McBride and DiVincenzo, who skies for rebounds. Hartenstein, who's been one of the best rebounders in the entire league while he's been starting. But they're not able to get some of these crunch time rebounds. And I don't know if that's just variance and just bad luck or there's something going on there. So I think that's a good point. And then, the Knicks shot 68% from the free throw line today. Not good. Randle missing 2 clutch free throws. Not good. Those are things that you don't want to see. And maybe those things are kind of subject to variance and subject to luck a little bit. So, I'm not going to go too crazy about it. But at the same time, if it continues to and turns into like a trend where like we're not getting rebounds when we need to and not making free throws, that is a big major concern. And you really can only go so far if you're not doing those things, those very fundamental things that are critical towards winning. And early in the season, when the Knicks had one of the best defenses in the NBA, a lot of that was due to the defensive rebounding. They were rebounding the ball extremely well, and they weren't stopping teams from shooting a really high percentage. But when they took a shot and they missed it, the Knicks were securing those rebounds. And we know, as Knicks fans, as Mitchell Robinson fans, how important it is to secure that rebound after the end of a offensive possession from your opponent. So those are really good points, and those are things that the Knicks are going to have to shore up if they're going to win these games coming down in the clutch.
Yeah, very well said. I'll just say, what are the 4 factors to offense or defense? You got free throw shooting, you got effective field goal percentage, you got turnovers, and you got rebounds. So if you're struggling with 2 of those 4 factors, you're not going to have a good time. And we won't even talk about the effective field goal percentage when you got guys who can't hit threes. So yeah, I'm right there. I'm right there with you. This team needs Jalen Brunson back. Not sure the free throws are on Tibs. Or the rebounding, those are kind of just like free throws are kind of just like a focus thing, and rebounding is like a 1-2 thing. But yeah, they are struggles for this next team right now when they need to do better. Thanks, Ted Edwards.
Yeah, appreciate the comment, Ted Edwards.
All right, Joseph Brennan, thank you for the contribution. If the final version of this team has a shooting guard playing 15 to 20 minutes, it should be Deuce. Can guard opposing PGs and has proven to be a more versatile offensive player than Grimes and on a great contract. I think that's a great point. I think the version of Deuce McBride that we're seeing is the version of Quentin Grimes we hope to see, because he's still really a 3-and-D player. He's not giving you initiation, but he is giving you some off the dribble juice, right? Quentin Grimes went to Kansas as a point guard, settled in as more of a combo guard at the University of Houston. I think Deuce McBride was a combo guard, really a point guard at the University of West Virginia. So we're seeing like their developmental arcs has been interesting, especially since Deuce McBride got to develop out of the limelight, whereas Quentin Grimes was, we need you to replace Evan Fournier, and we need you to replace Evan Fournier right now. So it's been interesting watching them develop, but I think that Deuce has, look, it's been like 2 weeks. Deuce McBride's been great, but he's been great for 2 weeks, right? Quentin Grimes does have a longer track record of sustainable play, even though he's been struggling this year. But I do think that when it comes to the shooting guard rotation, you do have 48 minutes of it. So if you're splitting it, if Josh Hart just has to get 8, and you're going 20-20, it's an interesting conversation. Do you give 24 to DiVincenzo, another 12 to Quentin Grimes, 4 minutes at the shooting guard position to Deuce McBride, and then Deuce gets the rest of his minutes back in on Brunson? Like, the Knicks have a lot of good guards, and we thought that with trading Emmanuel quickly that the guard glut would no longer be a question. And then Deuce said, actually, I'm really good at basketball too. So it's an interesting conversation to have for sure. But I do think the more versatile than Quentin Grimes, I think what you're seeing there is he's just better off the bounce at the moment than Quentin Grimes is.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Mensa. And Joseph, I think this is a great question. I think this is a conversation that's going to happen a lot moving forward through the rest of the season, kind of the Deuce versus Grimes conversation. My sense is really that in terms of the decisions that the team is going to make, I mean, the truth is that McBride is like 6'1", 6'2", and Quentin Grimes is like 6'4", 6'5". And we know this team really values size, and they value being able to guard up. I think McBride can do it almost as well, maybe just as well as Quentin Grimes, but I don't think the team's going to rely on that. I think the team's going to think, Deuce is just a little too small to play the 2 against some of the teams that play bigger 2s. At the same time, I do think, you said it, Mence, it's been like 2 weeks of McBride. Let's see where things shake out. If he continues to play like this throughout the season, I don't see how you don't kind of lean on him a lot more than Quentin Grimes. I think you just have to. If he plays like this, if he shoots like this, if he plays defense like this, if he's consistent the way that he's been, right now his true shooting is like 64% right now, which is just absurd. His 3-point shooting's 48% right now, absurd. Those things are going to come down to earth a little bit. Like, that's the truth. Those things are going to come down to earth. I will absolutely bet any amount of money that he's not going to shoot those numbers for the rest of the season. At the same time, we've seen a lot of Quentin Grimes, and we've seen him have a rough start. We've seen him kind of pick it up a little bit, but not really hit the heights that he's hit last season, in a bigger role, both on offense and defense. But his defense has been really good. I forget, in our KFS chat, someone shared, was it you, Mensa, that shared that the matchup difficulty for Quentin Grimes was still very high in the NBA, like top 5 in the NBA. Was that something that you shared?
Yeah, B-Ball Index, they posted that his I think, matchup difficulty for guards was either in the top 5 or top 10. And I'm like, but he's playing like 2 minutes a game. How is this possible? But
that's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
The stats are the stats, right? That's why we rely on stats, even when our eyes can't show us that.
Yeah. So with that matchup difficulty, he still is like a top 84th percentile in defensive EPM in the NBA. So the results are the results, and he's still playing really good defense, and I think the Knicks are going to value that and his ability to play wings a little more. But if McBride shoots like this, I think it is what it is. You can't sit this guy if he's shooting 50% from 3. So I think it's a great comment, Joseph. Thanks. What do we got next? Mythic Monty, another one. Appreciate it, Mythic Monty. Also need more from Hart. Terrible minutes tonight. Yeah, we talked a little bit about Josh Hart. A lot of out of control plays, a lot of sketchy plays, a lot of bad decisions, some solid minutes here and there, but just not consistently enough. So 100% agree. We're going to need a lot more from Josh Hart on a consistent basis. And honestly, if and when we do get that, it'll almost be like making a trade, because, last year the big trade was getting Josh Hart, and that inspired the whole team and turned this team into an entirely different team when he played well. So we know the heights that we can reach if Josh Hart plays like he did last year. And even without the shooting level that he was last year, I think he can really elevate this team if he kind of kicks it back in gear.
Yeah, very well said. I'll just add, yes, Josh Hart has been ass, and we need more than what Josh Hart has been, because it's not what you want. And for his sake, I understand he's CAA, I understand he's Villanova, and that's kind of like the clique in New York, but he has a very tradable contract. And if you're not going to shoot well, and if Julius isn't going to shoot, then the Knicks have proven that they will choose Julius Randle over a worse basketball player. And unless Josh Hart decides in the next 4 or 5 months that he's going to be a better basketball player than Julius Randle going forward, he has to play better, because he won't last in New York. Thanks, Mythic.
Yeah, well said. I the real quick, does he have a tradable contract right now? I'm not sure. I don't think the Knicks are going to plan on trading him, but if they did, I don't know how he's playing right now. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Very fair point. But I guess they would. I mean, Josh Hart's found homes. He got drafted by the Lakers, then got traded to the the Pelicans, then got traded to the Portland Trailblazers, then we traded for him. So teams seem to like Josh Hart, especially when it's a situation where like Steve Kerr starting him in FIBA World Cup games over like NBA All-Stars.
Yeah.
So Josh Hart is liked around the league. So I could see him. I could see it. It's like it'll hurt, because he's CAA in Villanova, and that's kind of like the mafia around these parts. But if you're not going to play well, they're not going to put their job ahead of your allegiances.
Yep, fair point. To be clear, I don't think either of us think they're there yet or anything, or even approaching there. But that's just something to have in the back of your mind. Appreciate it, Mythic Monty.
All right, Juanon. Thank you for your contribution, my friend. Do we really need any more proof that we don't have someone to match or change the pace of a game when Brunson is off the floor? Second unit needs a connector piece, and it isn't going to be Deuce. This is just kind of the theme of where we are right now in terms of the roster build, right? We just need another guy. But I do think that it's not because our role players aren't stepping up, because we're getting good games from OG. We're getting good games from Quentin Grimes off and on. We're getting good games from Dante. We're getting good games from Deuce. It feels like we're at the point where we need another connector piece, because we can't rely on Julius to be that guy in these moments. And again, it's only been 2 games, but I mean, these feelings for us as Knicks fans have kind of always been there. Like, I know for me, it's like I always say, like before the Memphis game, I'm like, you know what? I'm I want to support Julius. I want to be behind him. This guy's going to show me, and then he goes and has 2 games like this. So we do need that second connector piece, but I think the reasons why we need it are not necessarily, like, from what we're seeing, aren't really because the role players are playing poorly. That was the case early on, but now with the emergence of Deuce, now with Dante getting more comfortable, with OG getting more comfortable, because early in the season, or early when he got here, he would get the ball and just pass it back. He would kick it back to Julius. He would kick it back to Brunson. And today we're seeing him try to initiate some more as he's getting more comfortable with the offense. We're kind of seeing him, like, I'm watching him play in the offense, OG, and I'm like, this guy is just RJ Barrett with a 7'2" wingspan. The way he's they're using him the exact same way. It's very it's eerie. But yeah, we do need a second initiator. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, the main difference for OG is the corner shooting. Like, the guy is a ridiculous corner 3-point shooter. Like, something I love about OG is you cannot sag off of him in the corners. And that is so valuable because, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but that's where teams help from and definitely where the Knicks try to help from and where all the other teams try to help from. But if you have a guy who's just on autopilot from there, you can't do it. And we saw even OG one time have it in the corner and the spacing was terrible. I think they were like, Randle was right next to him and either Precious or Hartenstein was like also right in front of him. The spacing was awful. And he just jab stepped twice and hit a pull up 3 from the corner. I was just like, oh, I didn't even know he had that in his bag. But as far as like creation wise, yeah, it's just that's not going to be the guy you rely on in your second unit to step up. To me, I agree with you, Juanon. They definitely need a second unit connector piece or initiator piece, and I think that it's something that they're going to go out and get. If they didn't, the main thing I would look at is I would want more of a look at is DiVincenzo. I mentioned it a couple of times already in the live stream. DiVincenzo, I think, showed me a little bit as far as his initiation, his creation skill, running pick and rolls, kind of playing 2-man games. So I think there's a little more there potentially. And I've always been worried about DiVincenzo's turning the ball over, kind of getting stuck in no man's land and not being able to get all the way to the rim and then doing some kind of crazy pass out and turning it over. But he seemed under control tonight. And again, despite his not shooting tremendously well and not shooting at the standard that we've come to expect from him, I think he still had a really good offensive impact game. So hopefully they go out and get someone. If not, I think we're seeing, at least for me, the things fall into place where DiVincenzo is the guy that has to run a little more with the second unit, maybe stagger him with the starting lineup a little more and let him run things through pick and rolls, through high pick and rolls. So, but it's a great point, Juanon. I think for sure that if they want to really make some noise in the playoffs this year, they're going to have to go out and get someone. Appreciate the contribution as always. Kevin Danishevsky, what's up, Kev? JB needs to come back right now, or we can't leave MSG without a bench creator. To be honest, the dude deserves MVP consideration with how much worse we are without him. Yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, I do feel that, like, in a lot of cases, guys really solidify their MVP cases when they're hurt and when they're missing games, and then you see what it looks like without them and you're like, oh, that dude was way more important than I thought he was. That's crazy. And so I totally hear that. I think I'm not going to say IQ deserves MVP consideration, but I think that things would look a lot different if Emmanuel Quickley was here. And not saying that they wouldn't miss a beat or anything like that, but I think they win this game, and I don't think it's like really a close game. I think they're able to take care of a team like the Orlando Magic, despite having really strong physical guard defenders and wing defenders who they can throw at IQ. I think just his initiation skill, his craftiness out of the pick and roll, his shooting, everything that he brings, his ability to move it to either side of the court, weak side, strong side. I think a guy like Emmanuel Quickley is exactly what the Knicks need right now, which is pretty ironic. But yeah, I think when you take away Quickley, you take away RJ Barrett, you take away Jalen Brunson, I don't care who you add, unless they have initiation, creation skills, are good off the bounce, can run an offense. This is what your offense is going to look like. And it's just, yeah, it's tough. But I do think it's a great point about Brunson. He's probably solidifying, if he hadn't already, he's definitely solidified his all-star case by missing these last couple of games.
Yeah. The guy's clearly an all-star. The Knicks are playing really bad basketball without him. I know it's been 2 games, but to struggle against the Memphis Hustle and then to struggle against this struggling Orlando Magic team is not what you want. But I do want to just say our main guy shot 5 for 18 tonight. And everybody else, other than Malachi Flynn, did not have a problem putting the ball in the basket. Well, Malachi and Josh Hart, but he's not the point of this part of my agenda, right? So, I mean, it is what it is. Like, we need Julius to be better, and it's harder to evaluate the team, the rest of the guys, if your second guy isn't playing well. Like, look, if you believe that he's going to regress to the mean and that with it doesn't really matter if he's playing well with or without Jalen Brunson in the context of a team that also does not have RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly. If you think that he'll rebound, then sure. But it kind of feels like we're not saying this part out loud. So I'll say it for everybody. We are baking into the equation the struggles of Julius Randle for the need for a third guy. Thanks, Kev.
Yeah. And just real quick, I do want to say the starting lineup, outside of Julius Randle, shot 41% from 3. You got a 41% from 3 performance from OG, McBride, and DiVincenzo. That should be enough space to work with if you're Julius Randle. So it's a great point. Appreciate it, Kev.
All right, Bernard Richardson, thanks for the contribution. Tough timing for Randle slump to begin. Very, 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 very tough timing. Missed free throws, but we missed our closer more. Get healthy, JB. Please get healthy, JB. Malachi Flynn, if you're listening to this, please donate your calf to your local Jalen Brunson. We will appreciate it because when you use your calf, brother, 0 for 4 in 12 minutes, we don't really want that around here. With the part with the tough timing for our Randle slump to begin, I would go as far as to say it's not even just a tough time, it's an unacceptable time for a Randle slump to begin because the guy is out. Jalen Brunson is not playing. If Jalen Brunson calls out of work, you can't have diarrhea, brother. You got to figure it out. He's too important to be playing this poorly when Jalen Brunson is out. So I think it's just unacceptable. Yeah, we miss Jalen Brunson, and Julius Randle's slump is not just tough to me; it is unacceptable.
Yeah, and I think your point, Bernard, about missing our closer is so critical because it just what do the Knicks go to when they don't have Brunson at the end? I mean, you are going to Julius Randle pick and rolls where the team's going under the screens and just staying on him. Like, you're not getting any advantage that way, and you're just hoping that Julius can pull something out of a hat. But there's nothing consistent there. It just feels like you're going to more ISOs. Nothing's really happening. I mean, he should have enough space to work with, but you're really living and dying on whether he can make tough shots or draw fouls. And when you're playing a team like the Magic, who are really good defensively, it's just not going to happen consistently enough. So you do need Jalen Brunson. You do need the synergy between Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson where they're kind of creating off of one another. I think Brunson's presence clearly just makes Randle better as well. And I think, honestly, Randle's presence makes Brunson better as well. Like, I think those guys work well with each other when they have space and they have guys shooting threes, and the Knicks are shooting threes really well in terms of their starting lineup's performance. So I think the missed free throws were killer and not expected given how Randle has shot this year and from the whole team. And yeah, the closing point is an incredible one. And I think that the Knicks are going to figure out what to do. And maybe this is a blessing in disguise. We'll figure out what we go to in the home stretch when Jalen Brunson's not out there. So appreciate it, Bernard. Hush. Is this Hush Zoo? Or is this just a person named Hush?
I think so. I think that's Hush Zoo. Yeah.
Taking Dante DiVincenzo. That was a Freudian slip. I don't want a guy named Donovan on the team necessarily. Taking DTV first out when he was going in the third is so laughable. Then Hart hurting our offense. I don't get the rigidity when undermanned. Yeah, I noticed that too. I was curious about pulling DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo played 24 minutes tonight, and I thought he was played really, really well. Like 2 of 8 from 3, sure. 3 of 6 from the free throw line, sure. But overall, his impact was great. He had a team high +9 You can only take so much from an individual game plus minus, but I feel like that was reflective of his impact on the offense. I feel like he was getting to the rim. Things seemed to flow a lot more smoothly when he was out there. He can be a secondary creator when he shared the floor with Randle. And when they really went to him a lot more, I was like, wow, every time DiVincenzo has the ball and he's running a pick and roll, he's making good decisions. And I just feel more comfortable. I feel more confident about the Knicks offense when he's out there. So it was strange to me that he was capped at 24 minutes and Josh Hart was able to get 24 minutes when their impacts were like completely different, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So it's a great question. I didn't really notice it during the game as much as like looking afterwards and be like, DiVincenzo only played 24 minutes despite not having Jalen Brunson, and him showing that he was one of the best primary initiator options that we had without Brunson. So yeah, I think it's a great point. I don't really understand the move personally. I'm not going to like bury it too much, but yeah, it's just, I don't think that was the move.
Yeah. Your best shooter should not be playing the same amount of minutes as your worst shooter. I think that's pretty cut and dry. I don't have anything else to say other than 24 minutes for DiVincenzo and 24 minutes for Josh Hart that is not good.
Yeah, it was much more concisely said, man. So thanks for that. Thanks for that. Well, what else have we got?
All right, Busy. Thanks for the contribution. Julius looking mid without a point guard, much like a certain crosstown star who one of the casuals swear, is it better than him? Well, that is hilarious.
No, you go ahead, man. So you got that.
I will speak for Sean, who is still watching his Baltimore Ravens play football. So shout out to him. I know they're not playing this week because they were too good to play this week. But yeah, Julius looking mid, kind of like Mikal Bridges. That's kind of tough. I don't know what to say about it. But also, as far as the Mikal Bridges part, because I'm not Sean and I don't deserve that heat. But yeah, Julius Randle. I mean, if you think 5 for 18 is mid, I think 5 for 18 is bad. I'm not quite happy with the performance from Julius these past 2 days. I think calling him mid is generous because he's kind of been the reason we lost tonight, and we obviously won the game against Memphis, but we looked really, really bad in that first quarter, and a lot of that had to do with Julius Randle. So I guess he needs a point guard because Deuce is not a point guard. DiVincenzo isn't really a point guard. Malachi Flynn is not an NBA point guard. It's just, I guess get him a point guard and we'll see who he is.
Yeah, I'm going to stick up for Sean a little bit here because I don't really get into this back and forth, the Mikal Bridges, Julius Randle back and forth. I think Julius Randle is better than Mikal Bridges personally. That's where I'm at with it. And I don't think it's fair to have this comparison. I think Mikal Bridges has an awesome offensive environment to operate from. He has guys shooting like 40% from three, like from every position around him. When he's running a pick and roll, let's say with Nick Claxton, literally every option that he can pass to is shooting 40% plus. Like you got Cam Johnson shooting 41%. You have Finney Smith Jr. shooting 41%, something like that. I mean, Cam Thomas, when he's out there, he's only shooting like 35, but we know he's a good shooter. Royce O'Neal, I think, is also shooting 38% or something like that from three. Like the Nets have a really good office environment for a primary initiator creator because the spacing is great. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to make this comparison, but it is a funny comment. So so appreciate you throwing that in there, Busy. Thanks. Haitian Ferg, we need a PG. Deuce is a beneficiary of creation, not a creator initiator. Totally true. JR didn't have it today. Magic defense showed point guard need. Missed free throws and poor rebounding late hurt for sure. Offensive just stagnant without Brunson. Yeah, Haitian Ferg, appreciate the contribution so much. You hit on all the points. These are all the themes of the of the post game right now. I mean, for sure, Deuce, what you said, being a beneficiary of creation, he's like a small wing, and those guys, he's like a small off-ball wing, and that's really his ideal role. I think he can do a little bit with the ball, but like more like when the advantage is already created and he's getting the ball and can attack a closeout, or he's on the weak side and he has space to operate. That's when he can put it on the floor and kind of get to the rim at times. He did a couple times, and I was impressed by it, but that's not his main strength right now, and he's just being miscast. And honestly, he's doing the best that you could possibly hope from him in that role. And so it's totally true. He's kind of miscast, and for sure Randle didn't have it. The Magic defense did exploit the fact that they didn't have a point guard, but that's what you would expect them to do. That's what you would expect any team to come out and do, to kind of play Randle one-on-one when you can, and go under screens and dare him to beat you with his shooting. And if you don't have another option to go to create, then see what the Knicks are going to do. And they weren't able to do much. We saw, like a mid 2000s kind of game, slow pace, low volume. I think both teams shot like 83 or 81 field goal attempted. So yeah, it's just, this is probably what you would expect to see. And this is going to be the recipe to be in the Knicks if they don't have Jalen Brunson out there, and all the teams are going to have it. All the teams are going to know it. So yeah, they got to do something or figure out something else. But yeah, this is not going to work moving forward with no Brunson for sure.
Yeah, very well said. Only thing I'd add is that Julius Randle did not have it today. Of course, he did not have it. That was very obvious. Maybe he too is a beneficiary of creation and not a creator initiator. Maybe that's true for him. I know that when we were watching some games on playback, XJ and I would note that the second unit with Julius Randle, as opposed to like RJ or Jalen Brunson, would kind of just like stop, and it would be incumbent upon him to make that creation, like to be the creator, and then he would kind of just like call his own number and take a shot. So yeah, maybe that's also true of Julius Randle. And if that's true of Julius Randle, if he's a beneficiary of a point guard and a beneficiary of creation, what does that say about this team construct going forward? I think it makes, I don't know, man. I think Julius Randle is calling our team philosophy into question. We're not sounding the alarms yet, even though I'm a guy who has never been pro Julius. I've always been Julius agnostic. We're not sounding the alarms yet, but that is this. I think that's a really good way to put it, that Deuce is a beneficiary of creation, not a creator initiator, even though he was able to benefit from something today and Julius wasn't. So, hey, we'll see where it goes. Thanks, Asianberg. All right, here we go. Stevens Guillaume, thanks for the comment, my friend. Thanks for the contribution. Winnable game. What a disappointment. Grimes has to be the first off the bench. Spread the floor. Yeah, I mean, in a situation where Brunson is out, you probably want Grimes, especially if Hart. Okay, if DiVincenzo is going to be the first guy out, I don't want Hart coming in for DiVincenzo, because you're going from, again, your best shooter to your worst shooter, and that changes the dynamic of what the starting five is able to do dramatically, right? So, I mean, but when I think we're at a point where when everybody's healthy, maybe your first guy in is not Quentin Grimes, it's Deuce McBride. But for now, yeah, as long as Jalen Brunson is out, I probably want to see Grimes in over Hart as the first sub.
Yeah, I think you hit it, Mensa, which is, you said if DiVincenzo is going to be the first guy out, I don't want Josh Hart to be the first guy in. I think that's perfectly said. Like, if DiVincenzo is going to be the first guy out, it does have to be Grimes coming in. Why would you shrink the court to that extent when you have a guy, Hart, struggling with a shot, trying to find some consistency with a shot, with his confidence in his shot? Why would you bring him in first, replacing the best three-point shooter on the team and one of the best three-point shooters in the league, or one of the best three-point shooters on the team when Jalen Brunson's there? May not be the best, but when Jalen Brunson's not there, for sure the best three-point shooter on your team and one of the best in the league, and you replace him with a guy who's like really hesitant and reluctant to shoot. And now you cramp the spacing that you just created by bringing in OG Anunoby. Like, you just brought in OG Anunoby to space out in the corners, to add that to what you already have with DiVincenzo and with Quentin Grimes. And then instead of capitalizing on that, you immediately take the three-point shooter out and put a non-3-point shooter in, and you're just like, yeah, let's go back to playing this like really cramped style of basketball, and then okay, Randle, like, create, right? So to me, I'm not giving Randle a pass at all. I don't think he played well whatsoever, and we do need a lot more from him, but he did share the court a lot with Josh Hart, and the spacing wasn't what you would imagine it would need to be with Jalen Brunson not out there. And that's the thing that's so easy to forget. Brunson's an incredible primary initiator and offensive creator, but he's also one of the best spacers in the NBA as well. And so we didn't have that either. And you had a guy like Josh Hart kind of absorbing some of those minutes. You had a guy like Malachi Flynn absorbing some of those minutes. That's a big difference in terms of the space that you have on the court to operate in. And so I think that's just it's a really good point and something that the Knicks really need to think about. It's like, if you don't have Brunson, you need to figure out ways to make sure the spacing is still good at all times. And there were too many times when the spacing was bad, positioning was bad, and there was just not a lot of room to operate for whoever the primary creator was going to be. So I think it's a great point. Thanks so much for the contribution, Steven Sigame. Yeah, appreciate it. Good, great observation. Dom Cappuccini, appreciate the contribution, man. Thanks a lot. After JB announcement, I said a close loss could be acceptable. Well, I lied to myself. It's not acceptable. Once you lived it, it wasn't cool anymore. The most frustrating aspect is that Orlando isn't better even with no JB, and yet we are 0-2. Yeah, that's a great point. It looks like we have a couple more from Dom. Do we want to share those as well?
Yeah, let's keep rolling. Okay, I'll read this one. One more again from Dom. The front office, is going to do what it's going to do, but this should be a wake-up call to bring in a third playmaker, and another big body won't hurt either. Another big body would not hurt. Great point. Okay, this is yours.
Yeah, my only issue with Tibs, and thank you again so much, Dom Cappuccini. These are great comments, and we appreciate the contributions. My only issue with Tibs is waiting too late for Dante to come back in. Yeah, that's a lot about what we've been touching on. I get it. He didn't make the impact when he got in, but still, that's it. Good TO in mid-second. What am I? Oh, good timeout in the middle of the second. Okay, yeah.
All right. Wow. Thank you for the generous contribution, Dom. We really appreciate it. He says, I get that you can't always get what you want. The Stones did say you can try sometimes, and the Knicks really need to. We've seen the flashes of the 3-4 seed ceiling, but in order to realize it, they need a third playmaker to get and a better backup big right now. Yeah. That is, well, first of all, again, thank you for such a generous contribution. But yeah, I think that comment there, we've seen the flashes of the 3-4 seed ceiling. I think that kind of, it highlights the frustration for, just because, like, to me, like, our ceiling could be as high as the 2 seed, but when Brunson goes out, you start to see the imperfections of this team and the roster. Because look, Brunson's an excellent offensive basketball player, and when you have a guy that good, it covers for a multitude of sins. Right. It's kind of like having a franchise quarterback in pro football where, yeah, you may not have a great right guard, or you may, your second wide receiver may not be that great, but that guy can throw it and he will put you where you need to be. So I think that's huge, because it's so frustrating to see, like, we know who these guys are. Like, they are what? I think they're 6-2 in the new year now. Well, no, 6-3 or no, 6-2. Yeah, 6-2 in the new year. And both of those losses came without Jalen Brunson, right? So it can't be that Jalen Brunson is 2009 LeBron. Like, we can't have it that his impact is so significant because of a flawed roster build, especially when we have the resources and there are guys available who can help you mitigate the loss of a guy like Jalen Brunson. Because again, he played 2 games. He's not going to play the other 80, right? He might miss another 10. He might miss another 12, because that's just kind of how he trends for his career. And most guys don't play all 82. So it can't be that we throw up the white flag unless the other team has none of their good players, like unless the other team has their top 9 down, and we still struggle. So yeah, we need the front office to jump on it and just to really respond, because we know this team's ceiling. It's a high ceiling as far as regular season standards go. We'll see what they do in the playoffs, because the playoffs are kind of just a different beast altogether. But I think, yeah, we've seen those flashes, and I don't want them to be flashes. I want that to be who this team is going forward.
Yeah, I think that's all on point. I'm thrown off by Dom's generosity. I actually didn't even know what the pink super chat was, so it's nice to know that that's what the magenta super chat is. But no, to the comment, yeah, I think it's totally true. We've seen the flashes of the 3-4 seed, but in order to realize that they need a third playmaker and a better backup big, The thing to me that stands out is that before the OG trade, the Knicks' old roster construction really gave the Knicks like a really high floor, and maybe even a better regular season peak, depending on what happens, right? And so what I mean by that is, we could have easily withstood an injury from anyone besides Julius Randle, in my opinion, with the previous roster construction. And maybe even to be okay with a Randle injury because, you would imagine you'd see a better RJ Barrett playing in that 4 role and being able to have more space to operate, being able to have more usage and being put in spots where he excels a little bit more as opposed to being like an off-ball wing who's more of a spot-up shooter. We're able to see that Julius Randle does really well and has done really well this season while shooting like 30% from 3 or whatever he's shot. So I think it's just, to me, I think that team, when the previous construction, again, had a better floor, a higher floor because we could withstand injuries, and maybe a higher ceiling because injuries are going to happen. Injuries are part of the game. We know that we're going to play a full season. Jalen Brunson's not playing 82. There's no way Jalen Brunson's playing 82. We know that. If Jalen Brunson misses 10 games, maybe this team has a higher ceiling. If Jalen Brunson misses 20 games, maybe the previous roster construction had a higher ceiling because Emmanuel Quickley is like an Iron Man, and these guys play a ton of minutes and a ton of games and stay out there and are able to make an impact, and we don't lose as much as we've lost. Now, I think the Knicks have a higher ceiling overall for sure. If everybody's healthy, I think that this Knicks team is going to probably blow out of the water what the previous iteration of the team would have done. But how realistic is that? How practical is that these guys are going to stay healthy for a whole season? If you want to reach your ceiling, you got to have the depth and you got to have the high-end talent. And right now they have higher-end talent and much less depth at positions of need. And so, yeah, if you want to really see what this team can be, you do need a third playmaker and you do need a backup big. So definitely agree with that, Dom Cappuccini. Appreciate it so much.
Yeah, I think we have 2 more from Dom after this one.
2 more from Dom.
Okay, here we go. I read the last one, so you can get this one.
Yeah, there it goes. Thank you so much again, Dom Cappuccini is completely so generous. Find a way to bounce back on Wednesday at home with or without JB and with or without new additions, and all will be forgiven. We are in the garden, for God's sakes. Thanks, guys. Night all. R.I.P. Dr. King. Yeah, big shout out right there to Dr. King Jr. We got one more from Dom. Do we want to do that one too?
Yeah, okay, I'll take it. P.S. Games like this talk me into not the games like this talk me into not minding Scary Terry here in a moment of insanity. Yeah, I feel like Scary Terry's more scary than he is Terry, so I'm not quite the biggest fan of a Scary Terry acquisition, but would it have hurt to have a guy who can create his own offense on a night like tonight? Probably not. Yeah, that is very, very fair. Games like this one make you realize, man, maybe they're not asking for too much for DeJounte Murray. Or, man, maybe we just need to go get Malcolm Brogdon. It takes away from the patience and adds to the urgency. So, which is kind of how things work. Yeah, it's not fun watching your team lose, but if we do win against the Houston Rockets, who just struggled against, I forgot who they played today, but against the Philadelphia 76ers, they just struggled. They're on the East Coast trip. They should lose to us too, provided that Jalen Brunson comes back. I mean, with or without him, we need to beat him because we are quickly losing foothold in the Eastern Conference, right? That I think from 4 down to 8 is separated by maybe a half game right now. And I don't want to be a playing team. As Sean with the W says, in New York, we don't speak playing. And I want to stand on that for as long as I can stand on that. So this team needs to get to a place where if they got to add a guy, or if Julius just has to play better, or if Hart has to start shooting threes more, or if we just forget that Malachi Flynn has a Knicks jersey, whatever it is, even Precious, just forget they have Knicks jerseys completely. Maybe we'll be better off, but something needs to change. Something needs to be turned around pretty quickly here because we are losing foothold in the East pretty fast.
Yeah, it's all true. And the only thing I'll say to Dom's comment is that I actually think I like Terry Rozier as an offensive player. I think he's been underrated for a while in terms of what he brings to the table on the offensive end. On the defensive end is another story. We don't have to talk about that. That is the scary part of the Scary Terry is the defensive end. But offensively, he's been tremendous for a long time. The issue with Terry Rozier to me is not even really the defense. It's the fact that the guy has played like 35 minutes per game every year of the last like 5 years. Like he's not going to come in here and be Jalen Brunson's backup and play like 20 minutes sometimes and 15 minutes if other guys have it going, which could totally happen. That's why the guy is Malcolm Brogdon to me. And I'd be worried about Malcolm Brogdon's health. That's the red flag for him, generally speaking. But he's been decently healthy this year and was decently healthy last year, healthy enough to steal a Sixth Man of the Year award from the player who actually deserved it, but that just meant that he was out there for long enough to qualify. So that's a good news for the Knicks if they grab him. And I think the fact is he's used to playing 25 minutes per game, something around there, used to being able to come off the bench, has been in that role, has a great attitude. I think he wants to win at this point, is willing to do whatever it takes to win. So and has the right skill set. His shooting, he's been shooting an absurd 41% from three this year. And you might think, well, is he really that good a shooter? Last year, he shot 44% from three. And this year, look at the team he's playing with. He's playing on the lowly Portland Trailblazers, who are, running out not that he won't be good one day, but like Shaedon Sharpe for 22 minutes and a bunch of minutes from Scoot Henderson, who had a good game last night, but, has been awful so far his young career. So that's the kind of offensive environment that Malcolm Brogdon's in. But he's still been able to thrive and succeed. So imagine coming into this Knicks environment where you got shooters all around. I think he'd be a perfect fit and would be perfect fit for the role. So I kind of think that that's the guy, and that's the guy that I'd be looking for them to add. But Terry Rozier, I think, is an underrated offensive player. So it's not too insane to say that. I just don't know if it'd be a fit, and that's also my concern about DeJounte Murray as well in terms of the kind of minutes that he'd be looking at and would essentially be demanding if he came here. So yeah, thanks again so much, Dom Cappuccini. It's awesome. Really appreciate you.
All
this one me? Was it you?
Yes. Did I read this guy? No, yeah, it was you. It's you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, this is our last super chat. This has been great. Chris Carter, thanks so much for the contribution. Since John isn't here, this is a safe space for us to be honest about Tibs. It is absolutely a safe space to be honest about Tibs. Say whatever you want to say about Tibs. You will get no aggressive pushback from us, unless it's not accurate. When offense was at a premium, how does QG play only 14 minutes? Julius looked defeated out there. He sulks way too much as a leader. Yeah, and we could be honest about anyone. We could be honest about Julius Randle too. Julius Randle, I think I'm pretty tired of the cycle with Julius Randle, and I don't mean with him as a player. I mean about our reactions to Julius Randle. And the cycle goes, he plays like at an unbelievable all NBA level for, let's say, 8 games in a row, and it's like, wow, this guy is amazing. This guy's unstoppable. He's one of the top offensive players in the league. And then the response ends up being, wow, how dare you have challenged Julius Randle? Like, where are the apology forms? Apologize to Julius Randle. You've been down on this guy. You don't appreciate Julius Randle. And it's just like, yeah, at some point you're going to see the other shoe drop, and it's going to turn around, and he's going to play like this, and he's going to sulk, and he's going to be, a poor leader when Brunson's not out there. He's going to be inconsistent. He's going to miss shots. He's going to make bad decisions. And then it's going to be like, hey, everybody dogpile Julius Randle. Look at this guy. He's awful, this and that. And it just goes back and forth, back and forth. It's like, guys, on either end of that conversation, Julius Randle has extremely high highs and extremely low lows. When he's at the high highs, we know the low is coming. When he's at the lows, we know the highs are coming. Like, it just happens. This is the player that he is. This is the player that he's been for years at this point. It's not going to change. He's going to be in his 30s very soon. I don't expect a new Julius Randle to rise up from the ashes where he's either completely garbage for 82 or he's the best player in the world for 82. Neither of those things is going to happen. So this is the Julius Randle that we can expect. These things are going to happen. He's going to have amazing games where he's unstoppable. He's going to have terrible games where it's like he can't hit a shot and he's crying and pouting all over the court. Like, these things are going to happen. It bothers the hell out of me. Like, honestly, like it's insufferable to me when he does this. And so even when he's at the high highs, I'm always still like, okay, but like, this is amazing. But like, wait, you'll see, we always see. And we're seeing, and it's just the reality. And so as long as he's here, to me, this is what I would expect. It doesn't make it okay at all. It sucks, but this is the player that we have, and we're going to go the ups and the downs with it. I don't know why I took that in the Julius Randle direction, but you can comment on whatever you want from that, Mensa.
Yeah. First of all, very well said. I appreciate your rant because I feel like I'm not the only person ranting. But yeah, I'm right there with Chris on this. When offense was at a premium, how does Quentin Grimes only play 14, especially when Josh Hart's playing 24? Like, we need to be real about where this team is right now. We have good defenders. We do not need to rely on Josh Hart. And 24 minutes isn't the world's worth of minutes, right? It's not a ton. But when you have a guy like Quentin Grimes who can space the floor better for you, who you have a Julius Randle who's struggling, Julius Randle struggles when the spacing isn't great. So if you like, it's just the substitution patterns are kind of always a point of contention for Tom Thibodeau. I don't think he's the reason we lost tonight, but could he have been better? Yes. But we can always say that every night that there is a loss. And I'm not going to take this time to like jump on Tom Thibodeau, even though I'm not his biggest defender. I'm also not his biggest detractor. I'm kind of in the middle on Tibs. And yeah, like there's just to see that Quentin Grimes plays 14, DiVincenzo plays 24, and then Josh Hart plays 24. That's kind of disappointing. You don't want, to me, you should only have Josh Hart in the game if one of OG Anunoby or Julius Randle is out. He should strictly be the backup 3 or the 4. He should not be playing shooting guard minutes, especially when the first half of shooting guard is shooting and he is not good at shooting. We don't want him in the game. He can be a small forward, he can be a power forward, but a shooting guard, he's not that right now. And I understand he's 6'4", 6'5", but it's very hard to play the one of the two in the NBA if you cannot shoot or create an advantage like a John Morant. And even John Morant has to learn how to shoot. So I'm right there with you on the rotations. Tibbs could be better there. On the Julius Randle part, I think to XJ's point, Julius Randle I'm officially at a place where I will honor his star impact for what it is. He does have star impact on the game, but the player himself, I think Julius Randle, what I'm going to start referring to him as, is an insulated all-star. As in, when you put the right pieces around Julius Randle, you will get all-star output. But when Julius Randle doesn't have the right pieces around him, then you're probably not going to get all-star output. And we've seen as recently as 2021 where you didn't need Jalen Brunson. You could have just had Derrick Rose, and you didn't need Dante DiVincenzo. You could have just had Reggie Bullock, and then the other end of it is now he has Jalen Brunson and Dante DiVincenzo. As long as you have the right pieces around Julius, he plays well. It's just to a point where, like, if the pieces are even like kind of wrong, you start to see the struggles, and then with the struggles come the mental side of it, where he starts to sulk and he's complaining to the referees. And I think the one play of the game from Julius that kind of encapsulated like everything for me was when we needed a 3 and it was like a minute left and he shoots the ball and it only hits the backboard, misses the rim entirely. And it was a really, really loud, like, bang off the rim. Like, it was just kind of encapsulated his night, and like the frustrations, not just from him, but from everybody else with that sound coming off the backboard. It was almost poetic the way he missed that shot. Yeah, it again, just with XJ, like the highs do come and the lows do come. And because I have been watching this team my entire life, and because I've been watching Julius since he's been a Knick, I've learned not to get too high with him and I don't get too low with him. He gets down here and I'm just like, well, I mean, you had to see this, you had to see it coming, because it always comes, right? But the same thing as like, it's like, just because it's dark at night right now doesn't mean the morning isn't coming. And the morning always comes with Julius, but the night also always comes with Julius. And it's kind of like, in order to be what this team needs from a star player, in order for him to be that, he has to get rid of those low lows. It's kind of like the RJ Barrett conversation to a lesser extent, because he's nowhere near as inconsistent as RJ Barrett was as a New York Knick, but the inconsistencies are still there, and it makes it difficult for you to rely on a player like that long term, especially when, I don't want to get too far out, but especially when we're talking about extensions with Julius Randle very soon. You know, like, do you want to extend this guy who's turning 30 in November for the next 4 or 5 seasons and live with who he is in the moment? Like, the Knicks, like, this is very these games without Jalen Brunson to me are very informative to the Knicks process, because if Julius can put these 2 games behind him, let's say Jalen Brunson misses another 8 games and Julius Randle balls out in those 8 games, no matter what, he comes out shooting the ball well, playing really well. Like when he doesn't have the 3-pointer to rely on like he had last season, and in the We Here season, maybe he isn't the guy that you want, because the inconsistencies, again, look, they will show up in the playoffs. They will. I know that he had a bad team in 2021 and last year he had the ankle, but you are who you are. One thing that Sean with the W likes to say, and as I was reading this comment, I was remembering Sean in our faculty chat. He said, and I don't have it verbatim, but what he said was Julius Randle often seems like a guy who is controlled by the chaos instead of rises above it. And another thing that Sean says is that in moments of like peril and in high stress situations, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. So I mean, we should expect Julius to continue to sink to the level of his training. And unfortunately for Julius, it's kind of been what's out of the bed he wakes up on. But this year, these past 2 games to me have been more like, again, just a leadership issue. You got to be accountable. You got to hold yourself accountable. I know you want to go see the Dallas Cowboys play, and I'm not mad at you. And look, you could have been doing something out of the public age. You could have showed up today and had a bad game, and I would have had nothing, and I wouldn't be bringing up the Cowboys. But what I will bring up is that we knew Jalen Brunson there was a chance that Jalen Brunson would not be out there. So as the second best player on the team, you have to know that. You have to lock in and say, no matter what, I'm going to show up for my guys, and I'm going to be productive. 5 for 18 ain't going to do it. I think he had 6 turnovers against the Memphis Hustle. That's not going to do it. We need Julius to be better. And I think like the looking defeated, you can't look defeated in the first quarter, brother. That's unacceptable. The sulking from, you're not getting a call and it's 8 minutes left in the first quarter. Like, come on, bro, lock in. The team deserves better. You deserve better. I don't want to come on these post games. I don't want to be on Twitter complaining about how Julius doesn't look locked in. It doesn't make my experience any better. Like, yeah, I'm a guy who probably at the first, and I'll just say it, after the We Here season, I wanted to trade Julius Randle. I was like, listen, we need to sell high right now, and then look, he has had higher highs than the We Here season. This season, even so, has been better than the We Here season by some metrics, but where we're at with him is he's our guy, and I'm going to support him as long as he's our guy. But he has to make it easier for people to support him. Like people, like everybody knew that with Jalen Brunson is out, we're looking to 30. So 30 has to show up. There's no excuses anymore. RJ's not here anymore. Emmanuel Quickly's not here anymore. We need you now more than ever. So please just play better basketball, and we won't have to come on these post games and lose to an underman when we lose to underman teams like the Orlando Magic on Martin Luther King's Day. And with that being said, I just want to touch on Martin Luther King really quickly. I was talking to my 7-week-old son this morning about the importance of Martin Luther King. And more than anything else, it's not just that Martin Luther King opened the door for blacks in this country. He opened the door not just for minorities, but also for the majority to accept what minority people, what minority leaders, what minority communities can do going forward, right? It's his place in history is so very important because he speaks about so much in terms of not just like equality, but how you can advocate for equality and what harmful advocation looks like. So I think if you haven't read any of his pieces, if you haven't read any of his essays, if you haven't heard any of the words that he's spoken, YouTube is available to everybody. I recommend it. He's a great leader, and he made this country a lot better, and we continue to be better because of the changes that Martin Luther King made in his lifetime.
Yeah, I think that's obviously tremendously said, Mensa, and I'll just add to that real quick. I know we have another super chat that we'll get to after, but just to touch on that, yeah, for sure. Happy MLK Jr. Day. Definitely an important time to reflect on, principles of equality and justice and leadership even as well. And just like you were just talking about, Mensa, it's the advocacy for making major important changes and the legislative achievements that, MLK was able to inspire and generate in this country are like if you look back at it now and think about our political landscape at this point, really incredible, because we talk about our political landscape being the most divided it's been in our country and like currently, and I think we know for sure that's not the case. It has been even more divided at other points in time. We just didn't have social media putting it in our face constantly, but the legislative achievements that Dr. King was able to push forward is absolutely incredible. So for sure, a good time to just, like I said, reflect on equality, justice. If you're not going to go out and do anything, at least think about those principles that were pushed forward. So super happy to be doing this post game show with you, Mensa. And we got one more super chat. Let's get to that and then get out of here. Kevin Danishevsky. I don't remember whose turn it was, but Evan Fournier and QG for Burks and Killian Hayes and 2 seconds. Who says no?
Everybody says no, Kevin.
We all say no, Kevin. We all say no.
Kevin, I love you, but these trades are just wow, man. I'll take it. I mean, yeah. Has Killian been good? Because I love Alec Burks, but and then they're not, and then a rebuilding team who just traded 2 second-round picks is not going to trade 2 more second-round picks. And then I don't want to lose. Like, if we traded Quentin Grimes and got back Alec Burks and Killian Hayes, I would not be happy. And that's just what I'll say about that.
No, I agree with you. I appreciate the thought, the sentiment. I understand where you're going with it, Kev, but I'm not going to trade Quentin Grimes for Alec Burks, pretty much. Like, it's just not going to – it would be better for this year for sure, but Alec Burks is going to be 33 years old. Like, this is not something I'm looking forward to. And Killian Hayes, he's been terrible this year, has shown glimpses here and there, but he's shown glimpses throughout past seasons. It's just if it happens for him, great, but I'm not trading Quentin Grimes for the possibility of – Killian Hayes figuring it out and the last remains of Alec Burks to his career. No, it's not a move I'm probably going to make, but appreciate the idea, Kev. And that is all we got. This was a good post game show. Despite a rough loss today, I think we did a good job of kind of encapsulating where the team is at and putting it in the right perspective. Like I said, super happy to do this with you, Mensa. So yeah, good stuff. Any last thoughts you want to say before we sign out?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in with us. We've been on here for about 90 minutes now. You guys have been great. The comments have been great. And I think that this has been a really measured post game show as far as the super chat goes. Nobody was kind of like off the rails. I think everybody was balanced, and you guys make the show. Like you guys, if you guys didn't show up, we probably would have been out of here an hour ago. But you guys keep us, on our toes. And here at Knicks Film School, we want to say thank you to you guys because again, we do it because we love to, but we also do it because of the community that inspires us to do it every single day. So thanks again for Mensa. I am very pleased, and I guess I'll also speak for XJ and say that we're doing a great job here, and we thank you guys for joining us. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening on the KFS podcast feed later, please leave a 5-star rating and review. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys so much. Shout out APJP. Appreciate it.